So hi, I'm Kar Wei. AgentHex is a very, very new startup. I only recently had the idea maybe last year, even though this is a new year. Yeah, so AgentHex, we are doing cybersecurity gamified simulations. So I'm looking to use it as a teaching and learning aid. And I'm starting by simulating cybersecurity tools to make it easier to learn for new learners trying to join cybersecurity.
Hi everyone. It's first of all, it's an honor to be invited to speak here. My name is Simeon, so I'm a co-founder of Protos Labs. We are about a year and a half old. We are in the cyber risk management space. We work with enterprise and insurers to help them better assess and manage their cyber risk. So yeah, we got to know IC71 through some of the events and also the programs that they've hosted. And once again, I feel quite honored to speak to you guys about entrepreneurship and startups. Hopefully, I can share some insights into our own journey. Yeah.
All right, I'm Rayson, a program manager at I71. So this session is just meant for like a casual chat lah. So for all of you out there, practitioners who actually have some ideas that they want to form their own startups but don't know where to start from. So I think this session will benefit you to learn how the community can help, as well as from the founder itself, how they actually starts their journey from the entrepreneur side. All right, so without further ado, maybe we can have Kar Wei, our new
Yes.
startup, to ask the questions.
Yeah, so this will be a very chill chat. It will just be me trying to ask questions about Simeon, who is a lot more experienced in entrepreneurship than.
Not really.
No, he's very experienced. Okay, so maybe let's start with how did you come up with this idea in the first place?
Yeah. So we founded Protos Labs or incorporated the company in March of 2020, and then if for those who were in Singapore during that time, you will recall it's during a circuit breaker, right? So that's the worst time to found a company lah. So my co-founder and I, Joel, we used to be ex-colleagues at a management consulting firm, Booz Allen, and during that time, we were exposed to some of the ways that companies can better manage their cyber risks. And so we thought, we could do something, like a startup on our own. And because of COVID, I think we delayed that decision lah. So this year I'm about 30-ish plus. And then my co-founder is also 30-ish plus. We just had our first kid after 2020, right? Yeah. So young family lah, right? And then COVID and all that. So we decided to delay that. And so we did our own thing, started our own jobs, and then after that we came back together in September of 2021. And both of us, we always knew we wanted to do something outside of the corporate setting. And there was a itch to try to do something. So we got back together in 2021, tried to build an MVP, formulate the idea. And then in September of 2021, that's where I left my full-time job. It was a big decision, of course, with the blessings of my wife and my then 9-month-old kid to try this thing. And since then, I think we've grown from strength to strength. I think I can share more about that. But that was our journey. I think, when we first started, you watch a lot of the movies, right? The Social Network. And I think people tend to romanticize how startups get founded. For us, it was really Joel and myself, we met in my house. And then for a good 3 months, we were coming up with we had a concept, right? But being, semi-experienced professionals, we knew that there were a lot of there's a lot of competition out there lah. So for example, right, if let's say we're doing the trend tel space, oh, there's Recorded Future, there's Intel 471 and all these things, right? So what made our idea so unique? And that took a lot of brainstorming, but more importantly, going out to the market, speaking to our fellow peers, speaking to industry professionals to try to solidify that. So we landed upon an approach, right, where we were exposed to in Booz Allen to help companies better manage their cyber risks, and we used that and applied that in enterprise risk management as well as in cyber insurance underwriting, right? So that was the end product of maybe a year plus of that cycle, right? That feedback. Yeah, so that's how we started off.
Oh, so before you started this, what were you guys doing?
Like professionally?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So my background was in offensive security and OT security. So prior to this, I was doing VAPT for like large utilities, power infrastructure, oil and gas infrastructure. And then when I was in Booz, I was leading the OT practice and also doing some level of red teaming. Joel, his background is more in the SecOps side of things. So I think he started off in MHA, then CSA, OCVC doing some level of security ops. And then finally, I think he specialized in threat intelligence. So that was our sort of like professional background experience.
Oh, so you guys like identified maybe a place where there might be a potential issue for you to solve, and then you started the startup.
I think it starts with you want to do a startup first. Yeah, I don't think, at least personally for me, ever since I was younger, so like when my last year of uni, I actually applied for the NUS Enterprise grant. No, the grant, right? So I got like $10,000 for free, right, as an NUS student. And then back then, I just felt like I wanted to build something. I was very inspired by the stories, when I was in uni. That was when like the Facebooks and the Googles of the world started to become more and more prominent in the tech sector, right? So I always felt that I wanted to build something of my own. And even in all the different corporate jobs, I always felt that I wanted to do something that I can call my own, right? So it started with that, right? And then obviously, I wanted to do something that was in my domain expertise, right? And Joel, I think he's even more enterprising than me. So prior to this, he owned a couple of businesses, recruitment agency, maid agency, all these things, right? While he was doing cyber, right? So he's a very enterprising guy. So we came together, less the idea, more the desire to do something, yeah. And I think that's probably, and also our wife's blessing, yeah. So I couldn't tell you if my wife were to say no. So I think it started with that, less the idea. And the thing is, all ideas sound good until they get tested in the market, yeah. So typically, you have an idea, you go to market, you test your hypothesis, chances are it will be wrong. Then you come back to the drawing board, you refine the idea, test your hypothesis, learn more things, come back, and then the cycle repeats. And even up to today, we are still learning and continuing to learn from that. Yeah, so that was my like journey, my experience. I don't know whether for other startups it's the same.
On one point, I beg to differ. So you say that the start of COVID is not the best time to start your startup. So, but there's a trend that there's more startup during like recession time. When people loses their job, they got nothing to lose anymore. So they probably have a good idea and they want to explore to do their own startup. I think that's the best time to do their own startup. And also with the help of like I-71, what we do is that like what Simeon has mentioned on the validation process and all this, we have all this network of like CISOs corporates that will help us out as well as mentorship. So we provide them with all this network to get their solution validated by the corporate's company, and as well as we link them up to the investors. So I think, yeah, back to defer, I think that the best time to do your own startup is during recession time, as well as you can see the trend is that, yeah. So for other startups, journey as well, I think it's the same thing. Usually, how investors as well as how corporates look at a startup, half of the time it's not just about their solution and what their solution can do. It's more of like, are they passionate with their startup? I always like to say that cybersecurity is like buying insurance. So sometimes you not just looking at the insurance itself, the product of the insurance, but also the agents that are selling you. You don't want to have an agent that sell you that product, then halfway through and say, oh, sorry, I changed job already. I couldn't continue with providing you with the service. Yeah, I think the passion is the part where it's the most important when corporate as well as investors look at the startups. Yeah.
So it sounds like you work a lot with businesses instead of consumers. So what's like some difficulties you face when you are trying to get that initial traction?
Haha. Okay. Just between in this room lah. Anyway, some of you are like government people and stuff like that. I think it's really hard to do a B2B startup in Singapore lah. And I say this with a lot of respect for all our institutions and and everything else. And I don't think we are the only ones that feel this way. And for two main reasons. The first is that we are a small market. So cyber is a B2B, right? Who spends on cyber? Typically, government, large corporates, maybe your mid-sized enterprise, SMEs. Chances are they have bigger problems to face, right? So if you look at that, I would say maybe 1,000 companies at most, 1,500, 2,000 in Singapore, right? Okay. Then the context of small market, then you layer upon our culture, right? Typically in large organizations, right? If you buy a CrowdStrike, a Mandiant tool, a Mandiant consulting service, right? And you get breached, then you can say, oh, but Mandiant told me that. Yeah, they test my system and even they cannot find, so cannot be me. But if you are, in charge of procurement or you're the project manager, right? And then you say, okay, for this project, I'm going to use Protos Labs solution. And then you kind of breach. It's like, then your management asks you, hey, come on. You got 100K, right? Why you spend on Protos Labs instead of Mandiant, right? So that's the mindset of typical business, large businesses, right? And these are your customers in the cybersecurity space, at least in our space, right? B2B. So you put these two things together, you find that many organizations are not your typical early adopters. Yeah, and when you first start out as a company or as a startup with an innovative idea that's counter, I would not say cultural, but like goes against some of the way things are typically done in the industry, you will find it very hard to penetrate, to find your early adopters, right? So we experienced that for a long time. People will ask us, which industry framework do you all reference, or which standard, does this follow, or how do I know like your tool is better than XXX tool, right? And we got lucky, I think. We found an area in the market where not many people were looking at it, and I think that's the prerequisite of like any startup, success of any startup, right? So number one, you have to be contrarian, right? If you are just doing the same old thing as like everyone else, let's say I'm a VAPT shop, right? And I just do VAPT, I just do it better, then it's hard to disrupt the market, right? So you have to be contrarian, but you have to be contrarian and right? If you're contrarian and wrong, you fail. If you're not contrarian and you're right, you also fail, right? You have to be contrarian and you have to be right? So the matrix is on the top right side. I think programs like we participated in the Call for Innovation, run by CSA, NUS Enterprise, and I think two of you guys, and TMB Ventures, right? So it was the right platform for us to pitch our idea, and the right platform for some new things, and right environment and platform for new ideas to be considered. Right, so that's one. So obviously a great program. Second thing that we did was we looked outside of Singapore. So very quickly, very early in our startup journey, we knew that Singapore was not the right market, but not the only market we can be in, right? And so therefore we went to Indonesia, Malaysia, in search for companies that have the willingness and also, for example, in Malaysia, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many of you all done business in Malaysia. In Malaysia, it's like, hey, bang, how are you? Right? And then you talk about everything not cyber, right? For 1.5 hours, and then, oh, you know this cyber thing? Yeah, I think, yeah, let's see how we can work together. And you shake hand and then you go off, right? And that's how business is done. And it's a lot more relational. In Singapore, it's like, okay, this is the technical specs. Okay, comply. Not comply. Oh, so sorry, not comply. You are not 100 million revenue. Oh, so sorry, you know. Or you don't have your whatever, right? So, it's a very different way of doing business, right? And we found more success overseas. And I think that's the beauty of Singapore, right? Is that you have the resource, the talent here, but your market has to be outside. So we know of companies that start here and then the next thing they go to the US, right? Because that's where market is, right? And that's crucial for any startup, especially if you are looking at B2B startups, especially in the cyber domain. Yeah. So that has been our experience. Yeah.
Also, you work a lot with like global clients. So you have any tips on like how to start penetrating those global networks?
Okay, I'll share what we did, and then maybe I'll pass to Rayson also, because I'm sure he has like a lot of experience. So I think accelerator programs help. So if you have an idea, you have an MVP, it is compelling enough, apply for these programs. The ones that can get you in front of corporates. I think these are good ones. For us, we applied to a FWD program, ran out of Malaysia. That put us in front of FWD, right? And from there, we started to validate our approach, our technology, the problems that they face, which was so much more complex than what we initially thought. So that's one, accelerators. The second, having said that, right, chances are, it's great like if your first client is like a Merck or FWD, but chances are, those guys, their procurement process or innovation process is gonna kill you lah, right? So you start off with a maybe 6-month runway or 12-month runway, or you don't go take salary for 6 months, 12 months. Their procurement process is 18 months, right? You got to be in front of the budgeting cycle, and then from there you put in, you go and infiltrate, and then put your requirements in, and so on and so forth. So chances are global companies may not be the ideal like early adopter. You want to look at someone sort of like who basically want to have like not so complex organization. Decision makers are very close to the problem, and then they can say, okay, tomorrow I can sign. That kind of like thing. And you sign 1, 2, 3, and then after you go to the global company and say, hey, look at my clients, I have 1, 2, 3, and then are you all interested? And then you can start that process. Yeah. So that was so accelerators, and then looking at early adopters. So early adopters is very, very, very important. Your ICP, and then trying to find that correct profile. Yeah. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So maybe I can share more of like I-71 as well. Like as what Simeon has mentioned, we help to run the Cyber Call for Innovation. It's an initiative by CSA, Singapore CSA. So it's like we find CISOs that are, we find all the MNC CISOs to think of cybersecurity challenges that they might face in the next 2 to 3 years down the road without existing solution in the market at the moment. So we have them to come out with all these challenge statements, and then we try to find solution providers to solve those problems. So if you're able to solve this problem and you're awarded by CSA, right, CSA will fund up to $1 million for you to develop the solution out. And then we will have the MNC corporates to actually procure, or we will recommend them to procure the solutions. I mean, this is a very good inroad for new startups to actually reach the giants, I will say. Yeah, I think that's one of the good methods of services that we can provide, as well as like networking. we always do like Investors Day. We do different kind of like corporates night. So we have our startups to pitch their solutions to those corporates as well. You know, corporates or CISOs that join our community are usually those that are open to innovation. Yeah, so they are like the early adopters. Whereas, hardly you will see a lot of like government bodies, to be honest, because they have a lot of things to comply. So yeah, we do these kind of services to our startups, as well as to our communities of startups. So I think that's one way you can reach your first first few clients. But just asking back a question to you, Kar Wei.
Yes.
So have you defined your target audience or your market? Because you are asked like a B2B or B2C. Yeah.
For me, okay, I'm not as experienced, but I feel like you'd first have to start talking to people. Like you have to do the user validation. So for me, I talk to a wide range of people. For my product, which is more of like a teaching aid in cybersecurity, I identified that, okay, I could go either as a teaching aid to sell to like other education training providers, or I could go to the consumer route where I sell to users. And even then, you have to go as detailed as to like splitting up your customer segments into different profiles. So for example, even in the consumer route, you have maybe the novice profile, people who are not very experienced, who are looking to get into cybersecurity. And then you have the expert profile, people who already have experience. Maybe their goal is more of like getting certifications or getting like upskilling themselves for promotions, etc. So based on what kind of customer segment and what specific profile you have chosen, the nature of your solution will also change. So I think it's more of like talking to people in each of these profiles that you have identified, trying to understand what their potential issues are and how you can build something that can help solve their problems that they will find value in. Yeah.
So Simeon, any advice of a strategy?
I don't think I'm in any position to advise. I think sounds like a plan. Yeah, I think the most important thing is to have a plan and then just go and do it lah. Yeah. No amount of planning or strategizing can make up for actually execution. Yeah. Just based off like experience, I think like startup is like 95% execution and then like 5% planning. Yeah, it's like you can have the best plan and then you don't execute well. It's like you might as well have no plan. Yeah, so I think it sounds like a good plan. Then if you talk about like user validation, then like, okay, where's the 100 users? How am I going to get them, right? How do I reach them in the next 3 months, right? How do I measure like what are the metrics that they are going to say whether my product is good or bad or not so good? If it's good, then how much are we willing to pay? Are they willing to pay at all? Okay, they're not willing to pay. Then after that, okay, can I sell through other channels and so forth? So all these things I think will come up when like, yeah, when it comes up. So
Yeah, so it's like for me, right, I ended up going into a lot of rabbit holes. So you start, like there might come a point where you start making assumptions about the market yourself, but actually you might not actually know the market. So the only way to validate your ideas is to talk to people. So at the start, I assumed that, okay, maybe gamified solutions might not work for people who are more experienced in cybersecurity. I thought that maybe they would prefer the real thing instead of like having something that is simulated in a game engine. So only until I talked to other education training providers in cybersecurity, then they told me otherwise. They thought that it was a great idea, which was the opposite of what I thought. So I feel that not making such assumptions so early in your idea is a very important thing to take note of.
So I think, yeah, one point, if ever any of you are like thinking of like starting your own company, right? Fellow startup founders are, especially those that are slightly ahead of you, they tend to be very helpful. Yeah. So we had very good, I wouldn't say mentors, but fellow co-founders of other companies, because I think, and this is what I hear from in the Silicon Valley. It's like, you know, someone help you, then you just pay it forward, right? You pay it forward, right? And so, especially also in Singapore, we find that like the community is very small. And so we, you know, your best source of validation, advice, tend to be from other founders who, the best thing is that they have tried it before, right? You have an idea, and then you go and ask them, and they've tried it before, and they tell you why these things work or don't work. Yeah, and that's like, you cannot buy that kind of experience, yeah, and that helps shorten your iteration cycles a lot. So that has been very helpful for us.
So another question for Kar Wei. I know you're an interviewer, but more questions to you as well.
Yes.
So now you know your idea. Do you have a product already?
Oh yeah, I did take like maybe 1 or 2 months to create an MVP just so that I have something to show people. So sometimes when I start like trying to communicate my idea to people, it's a bit hard for them to understand what kind of issues I'm solving, what does it value add to anything. So it's a lot easier for people to understand, especially for potential customers or even maybe potential investors, to understand what you're trying to do if you have a product at hand. It doesn't even have to be like fully featured. So for mine, right, I just created a Wireshark simulation in Unity, and then I hosted it on WebGL. Then I just added, maybe coded a very simple learning platform interface, just so that I can show to like potential training providers or potential users about how it might look like, even though I don't have the full course yet. So I think, yeah, MVP is very important, especially in the ideation and user validation stage.
So what's the next step forward?
Definitely. I did manage to get some validation from potential partners, and I guess the next step is to try to land some pilot partnerships, especially with other startups that are in the same field. You see how you can help them solve potential issues. So for mine, maybe it can help them reduce manpower costs, since having this teaching aid, it will allow them to have a higher student-to-teacher ratio, so they can host bigger classes, get more students. So you try to find out these potential issues or areas that you can add value to, and then you try to start a pilot partnership with them and see how you can maybe form a more long-term partnership after you have that pilot done. Or maybe Simeon, you have like some other suggestions?
No, I think
Maybe like
sounds good.
maybe you can share more about like your MVP stage, and then what happened, and then after that, how did you start developing your full product? I mean, it didn't start from like full featured right from the start, right? Like you had to start from somewhere small, and then you grow into what it is now. So maybe you can share like how you identify what should be in an MVP and what shouldn't.
Yeah. I think looking back, we spent too much time on our MVP. Yeah. What happened was, so I'm in charge of building it. And then as a technical person, you want to build out everything, right? For example, you have a web app. You need a login page. After you log in, you need to have some level of routing. Let's say we have a risk management feature. And so, I want ISO 27001 controls. I want this CSF. I want this 853. And then you realize that, hey, suddenly from MVP, my feature set becomes like so long, right? And then you look at it, okay, how many developers do I have? Me and one intern, right? All right, that's gonna take us like 1 year, right? So looking back, I think, and the best part is like after you build it, so that was our experience, right? I mean, some of the mistakes I made lah. We're gonna build for 6 months, and then I was like, oh yeah, we have an MVP. Let's show it to our customers, and then like doesn't resonate with anyone, right? And then you look at that, and then you say, oh shit, like I spent like 6 months of my time like on this MVP. Customer doesn't really get the value that it will provide to them. So I need to go back to the drawing board. Chances are, or in our case, we had to throw like 57 to 70% of the code away. Yeah, so very, very expensive, right? And if you think about the lifespan of a startup, maybe pre-revenue, pre any investor money coming in, I think you have a 6 to 12 months runway, before you won't run out of money, because if you don't draw salary or you're still working, but you probably lose a lot of like momentum. Yeah, and there's opportunity cost. You will burn out. Yeah, so iterations MVPs should be MVPs, right? They should be bare minimum features, very lightweight. It can be just a landing page, a website that talks about your product, and then after that, if someone puts their email inside, you consider that as like sort of like a successful lead, right? And then from there, you just deliver the service by by hand or something like that, right? So that was our experience in the MVP stage. Of course, it's very useful to have an MVP when you talk to investors. But I think for us, we started our conversations with investors a bit too early also. And that was also not... the moment you talk to investors, fundraising is like a full-time job, right? They always say, so fundraising, full-time job. And it is until you don't know until you actually go and fundraise. So the more you fundraise, the more you speak to investors, the less you speak to your customers. And the investors don't buy your product, and then your customers buy the product. Right, so find the right time, build an MVP, get the traction, then after that talk to investors. So that was some of the couple of mistakes that we made, lah. Yeah. So as it relates to MVP, that was our experience. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Simeon. Thanks, everyone. I think we will move to Q&A. But before, maybe I just start the ball rolling here. So my first question, maybe to all of you is, it's not easy. It's definitely challenging, the entrepreneurial journey. So what keeps you going? And yeah, later we'll take questions from the floor.
Okay, for me, I love games, and also I'm quite young, so I have nothing to lose. So might as well.
Initially it was the desire to build something that I can call my own. As soon as I hired the first person, it was because I don't want to disappoint them. Yeah, because if I fail, that means they lose their job. And if they lose their job, they have family and all that. So that drives me now. Yeah, the team and responsibility to the team. Yeah, that's what drives me.
This question is not relevant to me. I'm not a startup. Okay. Yes.
Hi, Teck Guan here. I used to run my own startup. I sold it off. So it's a very depressing session that you guys are pushing for, seriously. After this, I suspect everyone here, no one wants to run startups anymore. And I'm telling you that startups will work. Okay, so bit of history. I've run my own startup. I've sold it off. I'm a venture partner with Entrepreneur First. I've groomed hundreds of startups. Okay, and a lot of very, very good sharing. Thank you for all the experiences. And what they have shared is a lot of things that you shouldn't do. I think that's very, very important. Maybe some things are what you should do. All right, so part of our process when we guide startups through, the very first thing is not the MVP. The very first thing that you want to look for is the problem. What is the problem you are solving? And it's not a world peace thing, right? I don't want to solve world peace. Solving world peace is not a startup problem because there is no customer. The specific question is, what is the problem you are solving for that customer? So you must identify who is this customer. Is it a B2B or B2C, as what the panel has said? Then what is the problem you are solving? Is it a lack of awareness? Is it a lack of ability? Is it a gap in the system? And what is the amount of value you deliver versus the amount of money that customer you have identified is willing to pay you? If the customer, so that's why I say world peace is not a problem, because world peace is everybody and you're not going to get a single cent out of it. So world peace is not a problem. If you can identify that problem, and you can identify and quantify the value you bring versus the amount of money the person is willing to pay you, then building the MVP makes a lot of sense. Correct? Because all you're doing in the MVP, we're not taking care of the bells and whistles. We just want to show your MVP solves that problem, convince the customer that they will then be willing to part some money with you, hopefully, and then you build out the actual product. And that would definitely shorten the cycle and move things forward. So please, let's start with what is the problem you are solving for the customer you are talking to. Once we get there, then we start to go into other questions, which I'm sure that the panel has already mentioned. So it's still a very, very big opportunity. There's still lots of things. They unfortunately shed a lot of battle scars, which is, you will go through the battle scars, but there's a lot of fun and a lot of things that can go on. So don't be so depressed. So I got no question. Okay, maybe I ask you as a question. So typically when you meet investors, we ask you 3 questions. You want to meet investors? 3 questions must answer. Why this? Why now? Why you? So based on what you're doing, can you answer why this? As in, what's the problem you're solving? Why now? And why you? Maybe you help us answer.
Sure. So the problem you're solving is really in the insurance space. So I think all of us are in the cybersecurity space. There's a lot of cyber attacks. They're increasing. A lot of businesses are impacted, and they're losing a lot of money. Right. So one way to circumvent that is through insurance. Right. But because of the rise in the number of attacks, insurers are losing a lot of money. Loss ratios are high. And they haven't seemed to found a way to underwrite cyber risk accurately. So this is why this. Why now? In Asia Pacific, we are about 5 years behind the US and European markets, where because of regulations and also increasing awareness, cyber insurance market has grown significantly right over the past few years. And I think in Asia, we're at a point where the awareness and that understanding of the risk is becoming more real. And so there's an uptick in the number of purchase of cyber insurance policies. So what we do is we help insurers, we provide technology to help insurers to underwrite risk more accurately so they can price risk better, cyber risk better, and they can make money in the cyber insurance space. Why us? So my co-founder and I, Joel, we used to advise a large global bank in cyber risk quantification. And that program was deployed across the bank worldwide, across 70 countries, tens of thousands of employees. And we bring that same expertise to bear, automate it in a platform, and then help the insurer to do the underwriting. So that's our sort of like 3, on that point, I realized, yes, maybe it's a bit depressing. Maybe because I'm in right smack, in the midst of thing. We just raised our seed round, and then we are trying to like get the metrics up and going. There are a few joys in running a startup, I think the thing that really comes to mind is the people, being able to build a team of your own, to see your ideas become reality. Like I think Steve Jobs said, you press the world and then the world pushes back, right? And then like we talk to a client and then actually they say, hey, yeah, this is what we want, and then say, it is our solution. Hey, yeah, it's good, right? And I think that is really satisfying beyond any of the jobs that I had before. And that sense of ownership, the sense of satisfaction, the sense of people. I think that is the things that really give me a lot of joy. The other thing I must say is, and it's a personal story. So when my son was born, he was born with a heart condition, and thankfully, he recovered. And during that whole experience, it made me realize that like I only have one life to live. And if my son is like 0 years old and he like almost died, right, like medically, right, then like why am I taking my life for granted, right? And so there are certain things I knew I wanted to do doing a startup, and that experience propelled me to doing that. And having now doing it right now and looking back, I would say there's no regrets. No regrets. And so if you feel the same way, then I say like just go for it. Just try. Try it. At most you fail, then you just go back to the job, right? But if you do succeed, then hopefully you can be like a gentleman here to sell a company and really like make an impact in the world. So that's for me.
Okay, maybe for me, why this? I feel that cybersecurity education can be a bit more accessible. Okay, so before I had this idea, right, AgentHex, I was a cybersecurity instructor at a company that I'm not gonna say. You can go find out yourself in the LinkedIn. Yeah, so I realized that in cybersecurity, especially when you go to the intermediate to advanced stage, we have this saying, right? I'm pretty sure many of you guys should know, try harder. Yeah, but there's the problem with being cyber native or not being cyber native. So when you're cyber native, things cybersecurity related, it comes natural to you. So even without an instructor there guiding you, you kind of like be able to tell what you're supposed to do and then build up from there, or have some level of independent learning. But for people who are not cyber native, which I see a lot when instructing people, especially those that are switching mid-career switches, they might come from a non-tech related field. Like I've seen people who come from music, I've seen people who come from like chemistry degrees who are looking to join cybersecurity. For them, I won't consider them cyber native, which is nothing wrong with that, but it just means that they need a higher level of guidance. And right now we have this saying that we have to try harder. We put a lot of emphasis on independent learning, but I feel that we have to like have a gray area somewhere in between where they can still get some guidance, but still be able to learn very technical cybersecurity topics. So that's an area that I want to target by kind of like simulating the entire thing in a game engine, which gives me more control over guiding them, acting as like a digital guide within the labs themselves. So why now? Cybersecurity is becoming more prevalent. There's a huge gap in the workforce, and we need more people in cybersecurity. There's also been a lot of initiatives, especially in the Singapore government, and I'm pretty sure international government too. They have like a lot of training initiatives for Singapore. We have SSG framework, SSG funding. We have the Cytrep Plus upscaling framework for tech industries. So with all these opportunities, of course, the market is growing, and I think it's a good place or good time to get into it. So why us? I think there is finding someone who is knowledgeable in cybersecurity, technical concepts, and also knowledgeable in game development too is a bit rare. So knowing how to translate cybersecurity tools, cybersecurity methodology into a gamified way within a game engine environment, and how to simulate those things, I think it takes a bit of experience in both fields that you might not find in typical cybersecurity analysts. But I might be wrong. Maybe I'm pretty sure there are cybersecurity analysts who loves games and also game development. So yeah.
I think we have like time for maybe one last question.
Yeah. So I think for us, we in the very initial days, post, I mean, maybe 6 months in, so we weren't drawing salary, me and my co-founder, and then we got to a point where we felt like we needed to increase our burn, so hire some people, grow the team, to deliver on some contracts and stuff like that. So I think we found more success in the early days with angel investors first, because I think they are more open to very, very early stage startups. Yeah. So we started with angel investors, family and friends, and then maybe their network. Yeah. And then that allowed us to work on building the product better, delivering on projects. When we got some level of traction, for us it was in terms of signed contracts, secured bookings. That's where we found more luck, I would say, with VCs. I think in in this part of the world, a lot of the VCs are more familiar with B2C sort of businesses, B2B maybe less so. So we had to meet quite a number of VCs, right, and find the right profile of a VC that could understand what we do, could value add to our business, and then we managed to get some term sheets and stuff like that lah. So beyond having an MVP, I think most importantly is showing some level of traction that actually you have a real problem that you're solving and people actually want to pay or want to use your product. For us, it came in the form of secure bookings, signed contracts, but it could be users, it could be letter of intents, it could be many different other things. I've seen quite a number of other startups use other metrics to show that there's a real demand for what they are doing lah. So that was our experience. In total, we took about 9 months of fundraise, so quite long actually. But also because we made a lot of mistakes along the way lah. Like for example, we started fundraising too early and things like that.
For me, AgentHex is in a very early stage, so I don't have like a lot of experience to comment on that. But I feel like at this point in time, I don't really see a point in raising funds because I'm still in the validation stage, right? And people might want to raise funds the moment they start a startup. But then comes the question that what are you raising funds for? Is it to get more people? So even if you get more people, what is it for? Are you trying to scale up to like go international? But if you haven't even done your user validation stage, which I'm still in the process of, and you haven't really ironed out a solution that will work for a small market, then there's no point in raising funds just to scale. So if you scale a solution, then eventually you find out that it doesn't work. Then you just waste your time and investor money. But that's just my take on it, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe later on I can introduce you to Take One as an investor as well as a mentor to help you with the fundraising. Just to answer your question, just to follow up with your remarks just now, we are not trying to sugarcoat this session, like saying, well, startup is easy, you can just do your startup, then you can just join S21, so I can get my job stability. Startup is a lot of challenges. We are just here to share openly and brutally the honest truth to all of you here who wants to form your own startup. What's the journey like, the better scars or the hurdles that you have run through. Yeah.
Okay, I think that will be it for today. Please stay back and speak to the presenters if you have any further questions. I just want to leave you with, oh, we have a video to show you. That's right. A short video. Yeah, okay, thank you everyone for coming in. If you have any questions, you want to learn more, please, you can visit our website or find us at our booth over the other side. Thank you. Have a nice weekend ahead.